I think the biggest challenge is that although we all undertake learning in various ways, we are actually working across different governmental departments, and because of that they have different objectives and different timescales.
The cycles of decision making are often very different from those of colleges. Our ethos are very often very different as well. And what this means really is that two very different sectors, which have got important commonalities, through a project like this, for the first time are having to learn how to work with each other. This is really integrated work, and it's tough. But the benefit of this is that because it's been done so rarely before in this sort of way, we're learning how to do it. We're learning about each other. It builds a framework for future collaboration and partnership that will get easier and easier the more we do it. And hopefully it actually enriches our own professional practice.
We have long-standing relationships with the V&A, and it's just down the road, so in theory our students should be constantly popping down there to see the collections at the V&A. Sometimes that doesn't happen. What the CETL-D can do is help us to engage students more proactively with the collections of the museum, the V&A and of the RIBA and other galleries, both in a physical sense and online, in a virtual sense. And it can do that by exploring new ways of engaging students, making that experience more stimulating and more informative. And if that happens, students will be able to understand their own achievements better than they can now. They'll be able to contextualize their own achievements. That's very important. It's pointless trying to be a postgraduate pushing at the boundaries of the discipline if you don't actually know where the discipline boundaries are, what's been done in the past.
And of course, one of the interesting things about design is that as designers produce objects, they may have a purpose in the contemporary world, which is utilitarian, but eventually they go into museum collections as time goes by. And those objects also become an inheritance and a testimony to past cultures and how those cultures operated. And that is another way designers learn, by looking at the objects of the past.
We've found from research that people tend to learn in a much more memorable way in a museum and gallery context. Those of us who are old enough to do so very often, and went to the exhibition, very often remember the Tutankhamun exhibition. I can certainly remember it very vividly. That hour with special objects seems to impress itself upon people's memories, and part of the reason for this seems to be something that psychologists who are researching the area describe as the flow experience, the point at which you become very focused on the present and the things that are in front of you, very focused on the nature of the experience, and because of that also have a very heightened sensibility as well.
The CETL-D project is going to help because it enables us to carry out a really thorough research programme into the needs of higher education design practice students, which for the V&A is quite a big proportion of our student audience. So I think it's that the very rare opportunity actually to do a sustained body of research over a period of years at the same time as developing resources and thinking about programmes. We're looking at resources which we'll make available on our website, but which can also be used in situ in the galleries next to the object. People need the information at the point at which the question arises, and that is actually next to the object in the galleries. We will select objects that we have found through our research are of particular interest to students, and we will try and provide a much broader range of information around those objects, so coming from different angles. Students very much like hearing different points of view on objects. So for example, we could have a resource that they can access on their PDA that may have a curator talking about the object, it may have one of our conservators who's worked on restoring it, it may have somebody entirely outside the museum commenting on what that object means for them. So I think it's often those kind of multiple viewpoints and diverse information that can really help students.